English narration, ready for TTS. Midnight. The newlyweds have been married for 8 hours, and they're not in a hotel, not on a plane over the ocean, not in a car racing toward the coast. They're standing in the kitchen of a farmhouse in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. She's still in the blue dress she sewed with her own hands in the weeks before this day, no sequins, no veil, no train. He's drying the last plate from 400 guests. The clock strikes midnight, and at 4 in the morning they'll both be up. This is what actually happens on an Amish wedding night. And it's not what your imagination is picturing right now. Because you've already filled in the picture, admit it. A headline about the wedding night of people who live without electricity and cars switches something on in your head, something secret, forbidden, behind a tightly shut door. So forget it. The door here doesn't even close. And the most astonishing thing about this night is how utterly, by our standards, it's stripped of any romance at all. No champagne. No island getaway. A plate, a dish rag, and cows that need milking at dawn. The average American wedding costs $35,000, plus another $5,000 for the honeymoon, a week of poolside snapshots. For these two, the whole thing runs to almost nothing. No hotel, no rings, no photographer, no online gift registry. And yet their marriage will almost certainly outlast yours. They know something about the first night and the first year that no one ever told you. Let me show you. I'm Amos. I grew up among these people. As a boy I went to their weddings, sat at their long tables, hauled heavy benches before dawn while the dew was still on the grass. I'm going to show you 7 things about this night and this day that don't appear in a single photograph, because no photographs exist at all. Almost everything I name costs nothing. And the last one, the reason you'll stay to the end, the modern world has gotten exactly backwards. Stick with me to the finish, and I'll explain what we've turned completely upside down. But we won't start with the night, or even with the wedding. We'll start with a garden bed. Stand with me at the edge of a vegetable patch in Holmes County, Ohio, in late August. The corn stands like a green wall, the air thick and heavy with heat. And suddenly you notice something odd. In one yard, someone has planted 3, 4 times more celery than any family could use in a whole year, long, even rows, hundreds of sturdy stalks. Neighbors walk past, take one look, and understand without a single word. There will be a wedding in this house by November. My grandfather put it this way: strangers print their announcement in the newspaper, ours grows right up out of the ground. You can't plant celery in September and have it ready in time, you plant it in July, 3 or 4 months before the day. Which means the decision to marry was made long before a single word was said out loud. The silence here isn't secrecy or shame. It's a way of giving 2 people time to quietly change their minds while no one has yet loudly promised anything in front of everyone. And there's your first thing that doesn't show up in a photo, the courtship itself. Amish courting is done almost in secret. A young man visits a young woman on Sunday evenings, and the serious talk isn't trumpeted across the county. When the two decide, a go-between, a trusted man, rides out to the bride's family to settle everything quietly and with respect. The wedding is announced publicly, the couple is published only a couple of weeks before the day, right in the middle of Sunday service. That's why the celery in the garden keeps the secret longer than any person can. The earth knows before the neighbors do. The celery is only the first sign that someone has started counting the days to November. But why November? Because everything has to be harvested by November. Amish weddings are held in late fall, most often on Tuesdays and Thursdays. After the corn is in, the last vegetables are dug, and the winter stores are laid by. Not on Saturday, the way everyone else does it. An outsider raises an eyebrow: why not the weekend, when it's convenient for everyone? Because Tuesday and Thursday leave Monday and Wednesday for cooking food for 400 mouths, and Friday for scrubbing everything clean, taking it all apart, and hauling it back home. Saturday, for the neighbors, is already given over to the work of the community. Here, every day of the week is assigned its job in advance. Nothing is chosen for how pretty it looks, it's chosen for how it makes sense for everyone at once. And here's the second thing that doesn't show up in a photo: this wedding has no building. No church with a steeple, no rented hall with garlands strung across the ceiling. The Amish worship in their homes, house to house in turn, and they marry in the very same place. The wooden benches arrive in the same covered wagon that carries them to service every 2 weeks, and they're set up in the living room, the kitchen, a swept-clean barn, anywhere that will hold the people by 7 in the morning. The house where you milk cows and mend harness every single day becomes a temple by dawn. And by evening, it's an ordinary kitchen again. No stage. No spotlight aimed at the young couple. If there's no stage, then what actually happens during the ceremony itself? The service lasts about 3 hours, and this is the third thing you'll never see in a picture, because there is no picture. The people sing from the Ausbund, a hymnal that has been printed and sung without a single interruption since 1564, it's the oldest songbook still in living, daily use. The melody is carried from memory, agonizingly slow, a single verse can last 15 minutes. The preachers speak long and softly, of Tobias from the old book, of faithfulness, of patience, of 2 people who from now on carry one yoke. And only at the very end do the bride and groom quietly rise from their seats. There's no exchange of rings, the Amish wear no jewelry at all, no rings, no earrings. No kiss for show. No photographer telling them where to turn their chin and how to hold the bouquet. The bishop joins their hands, asks a few simple questions, and they answer so quietly that the back rows can barely hear. That's it. You're married before God and 400 living witnesses, and not a single flash. The memory of this day will be kept only in the minds of those who sat there. That's why so many are invited, every guest is a living photograph that will never fade. And now 400 people want to eat. And this is finally where the whole reason they grew that celery all summer begins. The couple is seated in a corner of the room, that corner has a name, the Ek. Not at the head of a table on a dais, not on a throne, but right there in the corner, in the best spot by the window, where the light falls all day long. In front of them stands that very celery, in jars, in plain glass vases, in tight bundles. Here it's both food and the only decoration on the table, no store-bought roses, no ribbons. The stalks stand like bouquets. There's your fourth thing, for the Amish, celery is the flowers of this wedding, a symbol of the home these 2 will feed with their own hands. The main dish is called roascht, chicken torn by hand into shreds, mixed with cubes of dried homemade bread and baked in enormous, whole tray portions. Alongside it, mashed potatoes, chicken broth, fresh bread, and desserts the women of the community baked all Wednesday long, pies counted by the dozen, cookies by the 100. There are so many guests that people sit down at the tables in 2, sometimes 3 shifts, some eat while others wait their turn out in the yard. And none of it is cooked, served, and cleared away by a hired caterer. It's neighbors, aunts, cousins, gray-haired old men and teenagers, each with a job written out in advance by hand on a sheet of paper. A wedding here isn't a service you bought with money. It's the labor of 200 hands, given to you for free. Let me step out of the story for a second and ask you straight. How many people would come like that, on their own dime, on their own day off, to cook, haul benches, and wash your dishes at your wedding? Not out of politeness, not for the photos, but because in your world it simply isn't done any other way. Write the number in the comments. One honest number. I want to see it with my own eyes. Because here's what the whole thing rests on: it isn't the bishop or a stamped piece of paper that marries these 2 in the corner. It's a room full of people that marries them. And what happens at night, when that room finally empties out, you've understood completely wrong. The guests head off in the deepening dusk, some in a buggy creaking over the gravel, some on foot across a dark field. The young folks stay for the evening shift, where unacquainted boys and girls are deliberately seated together so they'll get to know each other, and they sing for a few more hours by lamplight. And then the last kerosene lamp goes out. And here it is, the very wedding night that stirs up so many greedy fantasies on the outside. The couple goes nowhere. No packed suitcases by the door, no tickets on the table. Their first night as husband and wife is spent under the roof of the bride's parents, in the very same house where they were married that day. And they begin it not with romance but with a rag, a bucket, and a broom, scrubbing down the kitchen, stacking the heavy benches back, finishing off the mountains of dishes they didn't get through that evening. My grandfather used to say that in his day the newlyweds went to bed well past midnight and got up at 4:30 in the morning, because no one had milked the cows for them. Wedding or no wedding, the livestock stand in the barn asking to be fed, they don't care about your dress. So here's the honest, unvarnished answer to the question in the headline. On their first night, Amish newlyweds most often simply collapse from exhaustion in a house full of relatives on the other side of the wall, and rise at dawn to go straight to work. No island. No champagne. And, here's what matters most, they aren't the least bit ashamed of it, and they don't even dream of anything else. Because their real honeymoon hasn't even begun yet. It begins only the following weekend. And it lasts not a measly week, but all winter long. Here's the sixth thing that doesn't appear in a single photo, because there are still no photos. Instead of a honeymoon in one beautiful place, the couple sets out on a long tour. Saturday to Saturday, from November until spring itself, they visit relatives, moving from farm to farm across the whole county, spending the night at one aunt's, then an uncle's, then a great-uncle's. And in every house a set table and a gift await them. Not some shiny trinket off a wish list, not an envelope. Pots and pans. An axe. Good tools. A stack of bed linens. A sack of fine flour. All the plain, sturdy things that a real working home is built from. The couple makes the rounds of dozens of families over the winter, and by spring they've assembled an entire household that an outsider would spend years paying off on credit. And along the way, everyone in the community gets to know the new family personally, at their own table, and takes on a small, silent promise to stand by them. The couple often doesn't put up a house of their own until spring, or even later. That whole first winter, their marriage lives not behind a closed door in private, but out in the open, at other people's tables, by other people's warm stoves, in full view of all the relatives. And now, that seventh thing, the one I asked you to stay to the end for. The one the modern world has understood exactly backwards. All our lives, you and I have been sold one idea, that a wedding is about two people. That the peak of it all, the climax, is that one night alone, the locked door, just the two of them against the whole world. That real intimacy is being alone together, and outsiders only get in the way. For the Amish, it's all turned on its head. Their marriage begins not behind a closed door but flung wide open, before 400 witnesses, cooked and set out by other people's hands, furnished with other people's gifts, passed from house to house all winter long like a treasure. The night alone, for them, is not the peak and not the prize, it's the smallest, quietest, most ordinary part of the whole thing. Because two people, however much they love each other, are too thin, too fragile a support to carry the full weight of an entire life. And when the whole community marries you, when 200 people personally, with their hands and their money, have invested in your first year, a marriage like that isn't so easy to drop and shatter. We pay $35,000 for one perfect day in the photographs, and the next morning we're left alone, the two of us, to deal with all the consequences. They pay almost nothing, and they're never left alone, ever. Now look at how all of this comes together into one single picture. The celery planted in July is the community preparing, half a year ahead of time, to lift you up. November after the harvest is when everyone finally has the strength and the free hands to come. The secret courtship is so the two of them have time to quietly weigh it all. The house instead of a church is walls that know you every weekday, not just on holidays. 3 hours of ancient hymns with not a single photograph, because the witness to your vow should be a living, breathing person, not a glossy snapshot in an album. The corner with the celery, the roast for 400 mouths, the 2 shifts at the tables, those are the hands that feed you for free. And the night of cleaning and a whole winter of moving from farm to farm, that's when the entire familiar world around you quietly, wordlessly, says one thing, you're not alone now, we've got you, and we won't let go. This isn't a random assortment of strange customs. It's one living whole. So here's one simple thing to do this evening. Find the longest married couple you know, your parents, the old couple next door, your grandmother and grandfather out in the yard, and ask them not about the grand wedding, but about their very first year together. Who helped them back then? Who brought a pot? Who came in the middle of the night when things were hard? And just listen to how many names they can recall from memory. And then, finally, answer me that question: how many living people would come to cook and wash your dishes at your wedding, not for the sake of appearances, but simply because in your world there's no other way? One number. I'm counting them. And next time, I'll tell you why there wasn't a single photograph at this wedding, and why Amish dolls have no faces. It's not some dark superstition at all. The reason runs far deeper than you think right now, and it explains, all at once, both the empty lens at the wedding and much else in their lives that seems so strange to you. Stay close. I'm Amos. And now you know it too.